when President Putin stopped the bleeding and began to make Russia strong enough, very, very slowly rebuilding its industry, and especially rebuilding the military, which the United States had sought to destroy. So by around 2014, the Americans said, how are we going to stop Russia from actually developing and becoming a viable, successful economy? Well, the big threat was Germany in all this, because Germany had had its own hopes that when now that there was no longer the Soviet occupation of East Germany, now Germany could export its industrial goods, its consumer goods, its machinery, washing machines, refrigerators to Russia in exchange for getting inexpensive Russian gas. And this was looked at as a threat by the United States because, number one, inexpensive Russian gas would help make Germany and Europe more of a competitor with the United States. So the problem was, how do we destroy the German economy and prevent it from being a competitor? And in the process, how do we wreck the Russian economy so that it cannot develop into a strong enough military power that it could, for instance, join with China and support it? Because ultimately we want to destroy China because China is also becoming more competitive than we are. And if other countries produce their own industry, it's like the third world producing its own food. It's a competition, and America cannot control a monopoly in the industries that other countries develop. And without monopoly rent, that's what imperialism is all about in today's world. So they decided to have a coup d'etat in Ukraine and back the neo-Nazi parties there, fanatic
2014.
Neo-Nazi,
This
the
is 2014.
right-wing sector. Yes, yes. And so they had a military coup d'etat, where the military put snipers in the build. There was a big demonstration, and they put snipers and were shooting their own policemen, pretending that it was the Russians that did all of this. There have been a lot of investigations, and they've all documented what happened. And then basically the right sector, the right-wingers, the neo-Nazis and Thatcherites and neoliberals, who were funded by the United States. Victoria Nuland from the State Department went there and said, we've spent $5 billion funding an anti-Russian, pro-US movement that we call democracy. Other people call it fascism. He said they may have swastikas, but they're democracy because they're pro-US. And if you're pro-US, that's our definition of a democracy. And so they'd basically started, they cut off all pension payments to the Russian-speaking eastern provinces. They began moving up the military and constantly shelling civilian apartment buildings there to try to drive the population away. And it was basically, they were saying the Russian speakers are racially inferior. The Slavic population is racially inferior. We're Europeans, and being Europeans, we want to kill every other race. That's what development's all about. One race has to be supreme, and it's going to be the white race. And that is, of course, democracy, American style. Democracy means you're all white. The rest of the world, as Victoria Nuland said, fuck the EU, when the EU wanted to have a development with Russia. Well, that's how America feels about the global South and all groups, that Asians, Indians, other people. It was very explicit racism, and that is what finally they said, how are we going to really get Germany not to import all of this new gas that Russia has just built, this new pipeline, Nord Stream #2. What do we do? Well, Victoria Nuland gave a speech. She was still at the State Department under Biden, as she was under President Obama. She said, we've got to make it appear as if Russia's the bad guy. We've got to keep goading Russia to react. We've got to be hurting the East. We've got to kill more Easterners. And if we come in and just begin to murder the civilians, we're sure that Russia can do something. And then we'll say, look at the Russian beast. They're going to invade Europe again, just as they did when they beat the Nazis. But this time we'll tell the Nazis, we've got your back. We're backing you this time, as General Patton and a lot of American generals in 1945. The minute Germany surrendered, America wanted to ally with Germany to have a new invasion with Russia, but Germany was too exhausted at that time. Finally, 75 years later, they said, okay, now we're ready to do it all over again. And they tried to back Nazis with the swastikas and the SS insignias all over again, attacking Russia. And they had thought that this would somehow drain Russia. Every Ukrainian that got shot, at least they used up one Russian bullet. And they said, now Russia will have fewer bullets. There won't be any Ukrainians left, but at least Russia won't have as many bullets or missiles or bombs anymore. And because the leadership of the right party was given millions and millions of dollars to put in Panama and Delaware and other offshore onshore banking centers, they were essentially acting on behalf of the United States. And all of this was published by WikiLeaks and by others to show, here's all the money that Zelensky and his other Ukrainian kleptocrats have taken abroad. But America said, well, that's democracy. Everybody's making money. What could be more democratic than that? And they had thought that somehow sanctioning Russia would at least deindustrialize Germany, because Germany wouldn't get any more gas or oil or titanium or helium or palladium, anything else that it needed. And Russia, if it was sanctioned, then it would go broke and the ruble would collapse. Well, all Russia had to do was say, okay, we're going to, America and Europe have just grabbed all of Russia's foreign exchange reserves, $300 billion. The Americans and Russia grabbed and said, now Russia's broke. Let's see what it did. Well, Russia said, okay, we will just ask for payment in rubles. And they exported their oil to the whole non-white part of the world that was quite happy to buy Russian oil, Russian food, and the Russian ruble went up instead of down. And the Americans couldn't figure that out. Almost everything the American has done, all of the sanctions have backfired and created the exact opposite of what they had hoped to understand, because they never understood the Russian economy. Just as Russia in 1991 and 1990 didn't understand what capitalism was all about. There was a lack of understanding on both sides. And so the United States cannot figure out how everything that it does trying to hurt Russia only makes it stronger, and not only makes Russia stronger and Europe poor, but it also shows the whole rest of the world, the global south, from Latin America, Africa, India, Asia. It shows this is what the United States wants to do to you. It wants to treat the whole world like it's treating Ukraine, that if it can't control you, it will destroy your economy, like it did that of Libya, like it did that of Iraq, like it tried to do in Syria. This is the American philosophy. We say in English, better dead than red. In other words, we can't control you. You saw what happened in Vietnam. You saw what happened in Laos. And essentially that is how the world is now being split into these two different camps. An aggressive US camp that has at least been able to defeat Europe economically. Europe now, without oil, without Russian gas, without Russian raw materials, and without the Russian market, to sell its exports to is in a state of collapse.